We're back, and I'm super excited to introduce each conference track. You'll find the tracks broken out by themes, starting with democratization and continuous learning, methods, leadership and collaboration, and decision-making. If you've already selected which track you would like to participate in a moment, you'll be automatically redirected to that track. If you did not pre-select a track, feel free to either stay here for the democratization track or click the agenda tab and select a different one. We'll see you there. I'm here at Vondelpark in Amsterdam, and I'm excited to introduce the democratization and continuous learning track. All presentations in this track will cover lessons learned, tips and tactics, as well as strategic advice on how to successfully promote and implement a culture of continual learning within product teams. For our first presentation, I'm pleased to introduce Haley Evans and Sarah Gallant, design researchers at League. They will be co-presenting a case study on constructing a research democratization strategy. Let's jump in.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Gallant, and today Haley and I are going to be talking to you about democratizing user research and the strategy that we've been using to scale the impact of our design research practice. So we'll start off with an introduction to what exactly we mean by democratized user research and why we do it, and then we'll walk you through our four-part strategy for how we've made this happen. And this includes building education for non-researchers, creating a scalable process, measuring the quality and impact of democratized research, and then taking time to reflect and iterate on the process. So what do we mean by research democratization? So before we dive in, I think it's important to highlight that this is a pretty controversial topic in the field of UX research. On the one hand, some believe that by democratizing user research, we're making the skills of UX researchers less relevant. While on the other hand, people believe that research can be everyone's job, and when democratized well and responsibly, it can actually help to scale the impact of user research and accelerate product teams' ability to make user-centered decisions during development. As you probably guessed, we are of the latter opinion. And when we talk about democratizing research, we're not just talking about letting everyone do research, but rather about making it possible and accessible for non-researchers to do user research by providing them with the appropriate training, tools, and some boundaries to make sure that everything stays on track. And by doing this, we've already noticed some great benefits in just over a year of implementing our strategy. And so I'm going to lead you with those right up front. And those include enhanced cross-functional collaboration by building relationships and bringing in perspectives to the research process that really benefit the quality of the work being done. We've also seen the capacity of our research grow. And Haley will talk a little bit more about this later in the presentation, but the idea is that basically with more people engaging in the process, our ability to do more user research has increased dramatically. And as a result, we think this process is helping to make us even more of a user-centered organization by making it a priority to learn about the goals and challenges of our users. So why did we democratize research? So this is the entire design research team at our company. We are a new team, just over a year old, and we work at a startup that operates in a fast-paced, agile environment. And as a team of two, we are meant to spend the majority of our time on strategic research activities that answer those complex, big, future-facing questions that help inform our long-term product direction, as well as tactical research activities that are narrower in scope and help to inform the capability of a particular area of our product. And then lastly, defining the research operations that help to support this entire design research function. So we realized pretty early that if we didn't democratize research so that designers can answer their own tactical research questions, we would have to spend less time addressing those high-value, high-complexity strategic initiatives so that we could produce more tactical research or vice versa. And so our approach has been to democratize user research by supporting non-researchers in owning their tactical research project, which allows us to take the lead on those more strategic and complex research activities. And this has by no means been an easy feat, and it's required a lot of planning, a lot of trial and error, but today we'd like to share the strategy that's been working for us for democratizing user research. So the first part of our strategy has been to educate non-researchers by investing time and providing education not just about research methods, but also the value of user research. And one of the primary ways that Haley and I have done this is by building out a user research education plan for non-researchers. And the goal of this plan have been threefold, and they include demystifying the research process, giving people the tools to answer their own research questions, and helping them build confidence in doing research autonomously along the way. And our approach to this has been to provide a combination of user research skills training sessions where we will focus in on a particular research method or topic, providing resources to supplement learning that they can't necessarily get within these skills training sessions, and then also leveraging one-to-one coaching during office hours when they actually need to apply the skills that they're learning in these sessions to their projects. So I'm going to be focusing in specifically on our skills training and resources, as Haley will be chatting about our approach to office hours in the next section. So for our skills training, in 2023, we introduced a UXR skills education curriculum, which consists of monthly training sessions that we conduct with the design team. So in the table on the right here, you can see our curriculum with the different workshops that we've led so far and the ones that we plan to lead in the coming months. So in terms of format, the sessions are 1 hour long and we make them part lecture, part interactive workshop. And then each workshop also has sort of a handy resource on the topic that people can come back to review in the future when they're actually implementing that method or skill on a test. So as an example, for our interpreting results from May's session, we started with a walkthrough on how to export, analyze, and interpret data from different types of Maze questions. And then we spent the majority of the session in an interactive workshop where we had attendees work with data from a previous Maze test and actually go through the steps of analyzing and interpreting the data, and then coming up with key insights based on their analysis. And what we're finding so far is that the format of these workshops is actually really helpful in getting people interested and excited about research. But we're also finding in our post-workshop surveys that designers are feeling more confident in their understanding and ability to carry out that method relative to before they attended the workshop. So we also supplement these sessions by providing resources for growth and professional development in user research, as we found that some people were interested in getting a deeper level of training in their user research skills. So Haley created this page that we aptly call the Nerd Zone, where people can go to find articles, textbooks, podcasts, tools, and courses that we recommend for additional learning, as well as conferences such as this one, where they can learn or network with other people in the field of user research. And we go in here and we kind of update this a few times a year just to make sure that all the content and the conferences that we're telling them to attend are up to date. So now I'm going to pass it to Haley, who will walk you through the next two components of our strategy.
Our next recommendation for creating a democratized research strategy that works is to scale your process. For us, that means creating a repeatable process that works across a variety of teams. Sometimes we're working with designers, product managers, content authors, individuals in our sales organization or marketing organization, and we need to create a repeatable process that works for everyone. At the same time, we have to be really protective of our own level of effort that goes in and the amount of time that we're spending. So we're going to show you some ways that we have created firm boundaries that help us work with these teams, but also help us maximize results with them. One of the ways that we do this is by making resources both accessible and useful. So some of the ways that we've done this is by first dedicating specified time to supporting democratized research. Sarah and I conduct office hours daily and we split the load. And the only time that we work on non-researchers projects is during those times. And so if someone wants our help and support, what they do is they sign up for those office hours and then we have dedicated time each day to assist them. And when they come to those office hours, we direct them to a series of templates for them to use. And to be clear, we don't have templates for every method under the sun. We actually started off by doing that because that was some advice that we read, but we actually found that people weren't using them very often and it wasn't a good use of our time because it wasn't being picked up by the non-researchers. What we instead rely on are two templates. We have a research plan template that helps individuals identify necessary background information, their research goals, the research questions, and the way that they think they want to approach it. And we also have a research findings template that helps them articulate what they found in the research. Those are really the only two templates that we rely on. What we then do instead is that we leverage completed democratized research projects that then help inspire non-researchers. So what I mean by that is, let's say that we have a test that we're putting out in Maze. It's an unmoderated usability test where we might be comparing two concepts. So we'll work with one of our non-researchers on that, and then we'll have that test kind of live in Maze in a folder, and then we'll direct the next person that wants to conduct a similar test to look at that test, compare it against their research goals and questions, and then we help them modify from there. We found that that's a much more efficient way of working, and it also means that we can say, we have a dedicated amount of time every week And, it's not that we don't ever go over that, but it has certainly helped manage the load. And it also helps give us a little bit of control of the process. And it's very helpful when you're going back to your research repository that everything is in a similar format. One of the other tenets of creating a scalable research process, in our experience, is to create partnership and visibility among teams. Some of the ways that Sarah and I do that today are tracking and communicating everything that we can in the appropriate channels. For example, anytime that we are working on projects with non-researchers, we have dedicated Slack channels where we are communicating with them about the specifics of their project, or when we are giving updates or asking how things are going. Those non-researchers are in that channel, as is their leadership, as is our leadership. So everybody is kind of informed of what is happening. That is then reflected in our project management system. We use Jira, but there are a variety of other, options out there of what individuals may be using, but we have a repeatable process of every phase of the research where individuals are tracking their work. And then if they're coming to office hours, we're commenting on those tickets so everybody can see what is going on. Another way that we create partnership and visibility among teams is by calling everyone to the table when we are creating something that will affect them. So we build our processes and documentation together with our non-researchers and their leadership. So we always take a participatory approach, and I'll give you an example of one of the things that we've done in the past. So when we originally started our team about a year ago, we created this very researchy way of doing a research plan. Turns out that really didn't work for our individuals conducting democratized research. It was too technical, it was very much in research language speak, and it just wasn't quite right, and it was too long. And we kind of realized this as we were working with individuals and thought, hey, you know what, we think this could be better. So we took a participatory approach where we workshopped it. We ended up cutting the template in half just to get the key information that was needed to get everybody on the same page. And what we ended up doing was changing the format a little bit. So rather than having it be in, a Word document, we now have options where individuals can work in a more visual-based way in, for example, FigJam, or in a document setting, whatever best fits their workflow. And finally, the last way that we create partnership and visibility among teams for democratized research is acting as the core of knowledge for what is going on with research. So not only do we have a research repository, but as projects are in progress, we try to help individuals connect with one another when we see an overlap or an opportunity to lift each other up and share. And that has become very, very valuable, especially breaking down silos between organizations. So for example, if we know that something really interesting is happening on the marketing team and it's going to affect product, we can be that bridge. Our next recommendation for a democratized research strategy that works is to actually measure the research that's being done. In this section, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how you can provide visibility into the quality, efficiency, and impact of democratized research at a company-wide level. One of the areas where we have really taken a focus this year is to create a measurement program to determine, what really happened with democratized research that was conducted at the company. And so for us, we track level of guidance, which is more or less the independence of the individuals conducting the research, the project level of difficulty, and then the impact that it actually had. And as we were doing this, we worked with our designers and our product managers to come up with a rubric that felt like it worked for everybody. And what we ended up deciding, because we often have several individuals conducting research, was that we were going to rate the projects rather than the individuals, which could feel like we were in a position of power rather than giving useful feedback at a peer level. I've included a snippet, a part of our rubric, to show you how we assess level of guidance. So you can see here it is on a Likert scale, from 1 being very heavy guidance, where perhaps we had to come in and do a lot of the heavy lifting ourselves, to all the way to a 5, which is, next to no guidance, where somebody is operating basically independently and comes with the point of view of, understanding the research methods and process. They really don't require guidance at all on that project. And we do this level of guidance measurement at each stage of the research project. And so that is from, research planning to the creation of materials, to the actual launching and data collection, the analysis of that data, and then the communication of the results to relevant stakeholders. And so what I want to do now is to walk you through how we use this measurement program, this rubric, to tell a story about the democratized research that was done. So I'm going to walk you through a few slides that show you what happened on our team this year. So we found after implementing this measurement program that we're doing more democratized research. Actually, since our team started, we have increased the amount of research by 900%, which wasn't terribly difficult to do because last year, there was only a handful of research projects done. But as you can see, we have scaled our process to supporting more than 30 projects in the last 6 months, which is pretty great. But what does it mean to do more research? More research doesn't mean better research. We really have to unpack that. And one of the ways that we do that is by looking at project level of difficulty and independence of that project. So we can make sure that we are going up in rigor and that our democratized researchers are becoming more independent. And so what we found after implementing our program over the last 6 months was that we did find that our project level of difficulty was going up. We started using more methods. Our tests started becoming more complex in ways that were lending toward rigor. And we also found that our democratized research projects were operating more independently, which is great. So we have both more difficult projects and more independence. We also think it's really important to break down the level of guidance or the project team's independence at each stage of the research process. And so you can see in our measurement program from this year, our democratized research projects actually improved at every single phase, which is really exciting when you look at Q1 up to Q2 and the improvement that occurred there. So some of you may be thinking, well, that's all well and good, but these metrics are all kind of good metrics that you would want to report on. What if they weren't good? Well, what I will say is that was actually our intent, was to identify our areas of weakness and to really focus on those areas where we are either improving the efficiency of our processes around things, or we are providing additional education, or figuring things out with the team of like, what is going wrong here? And so what you can see on this particular graph is that right now we're at about a level 3 in our level of guidance, which is moderate. And what we're hoping is that, as individuals move up to a 4 or a 5, they will need less guidance from us, which will mean that we can support more individuals. But this also helps us to indicate, how much support is actually needed by our team, where do we need to improve efficiencies. And then the final piece of our measurement program focuses on where we are actually making an impact with democratized research. Because why are we doing it if it's not doing anything for us? And so one of the things that we do is we have our project teams identify not only key results, but key decisions of what became of their research. What we then do is we theme from the bottom up and we figure out exactly what happened. And so this is an example of how we might communicate to leadership what happened with our democratized research projects. And you can see that there is a variety of different ways that our democratized research was actually functioning. So it contributed to our UX copywriting, to developing our navigation or IA, to uncovering user requirements. There are a variety of different ways that it may manifest. In addition to that, one of the other ways that we measure our impact is also on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, and we identify, did this impact one team, multiple teams, is it internal, external? For our tactical research, we found that there isn't a lot of variance in that for the most part, and to be fair, we are a platform company. We are typically designing things not only for a particular team, but that would affect multiple clients. And so this was a nicer way of breaking it down that provided a little bit more dimension into what was going on. Sarah and I will make our rubric available for everyone to use as a basis for understanding how you might create your own measurement program. And what I would encourage you to do is to work with your democratized researchers or non-researchers, as well as leadership, to figure out what are the tenets that matter to you? What would you actually want to measure? How can you give examples that help people understand? And then get your feedback. Our program was greatly improved by working with other individuals and getting buy-in. Furthermore, it was pretty cool to be able to show them all of the impact that they've had and the ways that they've improved. And now I'll pass it back over to Sarah to go over our last pillar of our strategy.
So the last step that we want to talk about is taking time to reflect and iterate on the democratization process to ensure that we're continually improving and meeting the needs of people doing research and also us researchers. And our primary approach to this has been to build in opportunities to reflect on how the design research team partners with designers during the research process. And so what we do is we aim to conduct retros every 6 months with the design team just to get a pulse on how things are going. And what we've done in the past is use this FigJam template that I've pictured here on the slide, where we have both designers and design researchers go in and provide comments and feedback on what's going well, what needs improvement, and new ideas that we might consider trying in relation to things like the end-to-end research process, current documentation, or education and training. We also leave room for people to share any open feedback, burning questions, or brilliant ideas that they might have outside of these areas. And then after the session, Haley and I go in and we analyze the responses and feedback and we code them so that we can identify key themes as action items for how we can improve our approach. So for example, in our Fall 22 retro, we broke feedback down into the researcher point of view, the designer point of view, and in our analysis, we were able to identify 3 key areas that needed work, including research planning, collaboration, documentation, and tools. For each of those areas, we then came up with ideas and presented these back to the design team and had them go in and vote on which idea would be most useful and helpful for us to move forward with. So as an example from our retro, we were actually able to uncover that our research plan template wasn't actually really working for designers. They found it to be a bit of a pain point because we had a lot of sections that they needed to fill in that weren't necessarily relevant to them at early stages of their research process. So by going through this process of collecting their feedback and asking them what wasn't working well, we learned that we actually needed to revamp this research plan. And so we went in and streamlined it and made it much easier for designers to go in and fill out their research plan quickly and then come meet with us in office hours to get feedback on how they should proceed. And so this process of pausing to reflect and iterate has been really instrumental in helping us to refine our strategy and improve the way that we support designers on their tactical projects. So let's review and bring it all together. So this is the strategy that's working for us right now, and it includes investing time in UX research education for non-researchers, creating a repeatable and scalable process with firm boundaries, measuring the research to provide visibility into the quality and impact of democratized research, and continuously reflecting and making incremental improvements on the process. And I emphasize that this is the strategy that's working for us right now because it's likely that it will change and evolve as we continue to reflect and iterate. But we hope we've demonstrated that the right approach can lead to some great results, particularly in making it possible for others to do research well without losing control of the UX research process. And we hope that you can take some of these tips and apply them to your own democratization strategy to help scale the impact of your UX research practice. And thank you so much for listening.